Hello, BookTube. This is Alan. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to make an early Friday Reads video. First of all, I wanted to tell you about what happened this past Tuesday. I work in a warehouse district, kind of a really small warehouse district. It's only like, I guess, about 15 warehouses. And it's off a major street in Dallas, and it's off of not far from interstate, Interstate 635. It's also in Dallas, and of course, and there's a passenger train that runs through there, which I have to get off, and I walk about 5 minutes through a wooded area where I see a lot of butterflies and bugs, and there's overgrown trees and bushes. You see a lot of spiders, and on the bottom is a little creek that runs through it. And there's so it's wooded area. So and it's real fun when you go through there at night. When I get off on late at night around 10 o'clock, and I have to go through there and use my phone to highlight the way. It's extremely dark. And so there is also a lot of wildlife that runs along there. There at the warehouse district, I've seen red-tailed hawks. I've seen skunks. In fact, I saw 5 skunks one time, and I was going to take a selfie with them, but I forgot my phone. I've seen rabbits. That's probably what the red-tailed hawk is looking for. And Tuesday, I had to walk. I was walking in the street because there's hardly any traffic. Well, there's no traffic at all. You got trucks running through there, and cars are already parked in some of the warehouses. And I was walking down the street close to the edge, one side of the street, because no sidewalks. And I stopped because I saw this enormous bird up ahead. It was in the grass, and it was kind of scratching at something, clawing at something. And I looked at it, and I said, "Oh, that's a vulture. It's a huge thing, and it happens to be a turkey vulture, which is very common in Texas." And so I got my phone out. I was gonna take a picture of it, but I apparently get closer to the vulture and take a picture, but apparently it didn't see me. Apparently it sensed that I was there. And so it left the prey and went up and flew up to the edge of the building. And I caught a picture of it there. And that picture is on my Instagram page if I care to go there and look at it. A turkey vulture has a wingspan of 21 feet. And they weigh only 5 pounds. So it's an enormous bird. But there is a penalty for killing them and eating them if you want to do that. In Texas, it's like $1,000 or $2,000 fine and either 1 year in jail. I'd hate to be the person in jail. Somebody asked me, "Oh, what are you in jail for?" And I said, "Well, I ate a turkey vulture." And people would just distance themselves from you. So I have found a book at this little library. Someone that put out a little library, one of those boxes that you probably find. There's also a pantry too, which the neighborhood put out. And I found this book by Guy de Maupassant. I guess that's pronounced the last name. Maupassant, a French author. And this is his selected short stories. This is the penguin, the black spine penguin. You might see this on Steve Donahue's channel. And the introduction is torn out, part of the introduction, which leads to a question: are introductions important? Are introductions to books important? Should you read them or should you not? What do you think about introductions and forewords to books? Should you read them or should you not? What I'm reading is Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. This is the movie tie-in cover, kind of a wraparound cover. And this movie was directed by David Lean, who also directed, what's the movie? I forgot about that one. Can't remember that one right now. Anyway, this is Omar Sharif, Julie Christie, Alec Guinness, Rod Steiger are in the film. But I find this one very interesting. I'm on page 155 of it, and it has over 500 pages. 500 pages, but it also has forms in the back of it. And this is pretty well worn, as you can tell right here. Fixing to fall apart. So maybe I could get through with it before it does fall apart. I'm also reading The Lost Pianos in Siberia. And I mentioned this in my last Friday Reads video. This is by Sophie Roberts. This is her debut novel. And it's very, very, very good. Really enjoying it. And what she does, and there's a chronological in the back. There is a chronological section in the back. Yeah, here it is. Brief historical chronological in the back. And she mentions that, here it is. In 1774, Catherine the Great commissioned the piano in London. Over the next 3 decades, the instrument undergoes rapid changes in technology. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Music Clemente duel at the Emperor Joseph II court in Vienna. Construction begins on the Palace, a center of Russian musical life throughout the 19th century. And so you have Catherine the Great trying to bring culture into Russia by asking people to produce pianos for Siberia. 1842, Franz Liszt makes his debut, and it goes on, and she even includes herself in here. And 2016, the search for the lost piano Siberia begins. So this came out this year. In fact, it's going to be printed in August the 4th. And what she does is that she goes through the history and how it starts, the pianos in Siberia, how they start the cultural edition. And then she goes and she takes each certain sections, each certain chapter is a town or a village in Siberia. And she talks about how she's looking for that particular instrument. And here's one called Irkutsk, Irkutsk. There's another one I want to talk more about, and that is the Sakhalin Islands. The Sakhalin Islands are right above Hokkaido, which is right above Japan. So the Sakhalin Islands are right there. And Anton Chekhov made a visit to the Sakhalin Islands, and he wrote a book about what he saw there. And what he saw was a penal colony that was set up by Alexander II, Tsar Alexander II. And the penal colony was one of the worst travels that happened during that time. I You had people that were prisoners there, and they were. Here's a picture of. This is called the Wheelbarrow Man of the Sakhalin Islands. This is in 1903, and what happened is that they were chained to the wheelbarrow, and they had to sleep that way also. And the gallows is right here. The gallows stood next to a hoe where some of the wheelbarrow men worked. These residents, offenders, runaways, and murderers were chained to the wheelbarrows by their hands and feet for the rest of their sentence. They remained cuffed to the wheelbarrows even as they slept, with their instruments of torture placed beneath them in specially adapted bunks. In the rare event that a wheelbarrow man was released from his burden, he was so broken, said Chekhov, he couldn't hold a cup without slopping tea. And then in 1905, there was Japan and Russia were at war over the Sakhalin Islands. And a treaty was signed, initiated by President Theodore Roosevelt. And so the treaty said that Japan owned the southern part of the Sakhalin Islands there on the 50th parallel. And for that, President Theodore Roosevelt won a Nobel Peace Prize and became still the only president of the United States to win a Nobel Peace Prize for actually doing something. She goes on to look at, she goes on in different areas. Oh yes, and then in 40 years later, after the 1905 war, 40 years later, in 1945, Stalin said, well, we need to get these arms back. And so Russia went, the Soviet Union, went to war against Japan during World War II and claimed the islands back. And then in 1993, a famous incident occurred where a famous incident occurred in which a Korean airliner 007 was shot down over the Sakhalin Islands because the Russians said thought it was a spy plane. Many of you probably remember that. And she goes on to describe each city. She tries to locate the Tsar Nicholas II, or Nicholas Last, piano that they had in seclusion. When they were in seclusion, him and his family were in seclusion before they were shot, and try to locate that piano. And then she goes to what she called the Altai Mountains, which are on the border of 4 countries. You have, at that time, you had Russia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and China. So you're right on the border of 4 different countries. As you can see, it's right there. So you have Kazakhstan, Mongolia, China, and Russia. And she meets a man there who was, he meets somebody whose wife, Elena, was a talented pianist, and her uncle was the Russian composer, Mussorgsky, was the one who was the so-called Monty Five. But there's another person that she meets there. Let's see if I can find it. This gentleman here, Leonid Kelsin, photographed in his library in Uzhkovska village in 2007. and then I'll read you a part of it. And a kitchen and bed were squeezed in among piles of books. Sleeves curled out the main living area past a small stove in the back room with narrow walkways. There were novels, poetry, history books, and an 1837 edition entitled Activities of Peter the Great and Weiss, a 1902 copy of Byron's works, and an illustrated collection of Oscar Wilde's fairy tales. Among the shelves stood a picture of a passenger jet, a wooden sculpture of Elena Rorick in a lotus position, and a portrait of Ernest Hemingway. And on the windowsill, geranium leaves released a smell, sweet oil smell of summer. The rooms were freezing. Illinois, who had run out of money to buy fuel, had a chance to replace his socks. When it really ran short, Lenoid went to collect his own wood from the forest using a rusty US band, UAC, a Soviet classic in gunnery gray parked up beside his house. So that's the way it goes, and it just tells the history of each place that she goes to. And so I'm really enjoying this. So if you want to learn a little bit about Russian history, you should get this book, The Lost Pianos of Siberia. It's a very, very interesting book. So, well, that's it, BookTube, and thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your comments, and have a good weekend.